I wasted the last 4 years of my life. I became an academic machine. I could have improved my behavior, my body, and relationships. I could have tried to build a business or start a YouTube channel. Instead, I based my self-worth on my grades. And this drew me nearly suicidal, as I found myself worthless compared to better students. These words aren't mine, but they might as well have been. Andreas, a channel subscriber, sent me this message on Instagram. When I asked you, what is causing you the most pain right now? You told me that it was a lack of direction. And Andreas's message, it just puts a face on the pain of millions of young folk. When I ask you, if you're feeling like you're waiting for life to start, 70% said yes. I felt that same pain and regret in my 20s after I burnt out getting through bioengineering in college. But get this, Andreas is not in college. He's still in high school. He's a teenager. Now, I'm not about to trivialize his worries because he's young. In fact, his assessment of the situation is precocious, and I'm proud to have an audience that is composed of men of his potential. It is only men of potential that can feel regret for wasted time. If Andreas had no potential, he wouldn't feel this pain of time wasted. So if you're confused, and if you're in pain because you feel your youth slipping by, then I tell you that this is a good sign. The more pain you feel, the more potential you have. I'm going to give you 5 steps that ensure that you don't waste your youth like the average person will. There's a lot of conflicting messages on what you should do when you're in your teens or your 20s. Should you focus on school? Should you start a business? Should you maybe start a YouTube channel? Should you maybe do coaching calls? Should you travel? Should you read books? Every single choice has drawbacks, but here's the thing, you might as well get used to it because in real life, there are no solutions, there's only trade-offs. I've been an engineering student. I've worked in food preservation. I've worked in solar energy. I've been a genetics PhD student working on parasite biology and human genetics. I've been in the army as a 50 cal machine gunner, and now I'm a businessman. I'm proud of my growth in some of these phases, and in some other phases, I am regretful of my stagnation. I want to spare you the pain of that regret. Your time and your youth is precious. I wish somebody told me the things which I am about to tell you. The easiest way to waste years of your life is to live towards somebody else's vision for you. One of the worst days of my life was when I completed and graduated from my engineering program. It was one of the finest programs of its kind on the planet. I was guaranteed an $80,000 starting salary that could very easily go to $100,000 and beyond in a few years. Mega corporations like Frito-Lay, Monsanto, and PepsiCo had stalls eagerly waiting to give me a secure, high-paying, prestigious job. I worked brutally hard to get where I was. I had pulled all-nighters and sacrificed my health in order to do these engineering products and study for exams. I'd gotten through fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, calculus 1, 2, and 3, linear algebra, differential equations, and so much more to get where I was. And even before then, I'd sacrificed so much as a high schooler to get into this top university. So waking up at 6 a.m. and studying as a full-time job, going to extra classes after the actual school hours to hopefully gain an advantage. Like Andreas said, I was an academic machine. But still, that's what it took. I had the degree in hand. I was living the dream, but it was, of course, somebody else's dream. I felt alone in the crowd, and all my classmates who graduated with me, they had a day of celebration, but for me, it was a day of depression. That day, I hated my parents. I hated them for being proud of me, because deep down, I knew that I was a fraud. They had invested years worth of savings to get me through college. I went along with it on autopilot because I was so psyoped into thinking that everything I wanted was on the other side of that degree. It would have been better for me to have just failed out of the program to face reality and have those tough conversations with my parents that I never did. The reality was I didn't really want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a writer. Though at that time, I didn't even know that. And get this, my parents aren't irrational or dogmatic people. They would have supported me if I just had the guts to say the truth. I felt guilty though, because I didn't want to lose out on the competition. I didn't want to be a failure. I didn't want to be the man left behind. The day you finish your degree is supposed to be a day of triumph because you're holding proof in your hands that you're officially ahead of everyone in the game of life. But whenever you spend time chasing a dream that isn't yours, you take a step backwards, not forwards. I felt that I had wasted 4 years of my life just like Andreas did. The first rule I want to teach you is reject your programming. The truth is, nobody has it figured out. Least of all, your boomer parents. Our parents grew up in a different economy with different job security, different saving rates, and different home prices, different opportunities. They mean well, but they aren't prophets. The best they can do is provide a framework. In the past, it was great because technology and the economy were fairly the same generation to generation. But now everything is changing. If you're the kind of person who watches my channel, you have an above average intelligence and above average potential. A new era of opportunity is open to you. The only way you can fail is by playing somebody else's game. Accept the fact that you don't know much about life, but neither does anybody else. Everybody is playing this game for the first time. You must be willing to accept the grand adventure that life offers and be open to your unique instincts and intuitions. This is the only way you can find your own unique talents and gifts. Our programming are just limiting beliefs. The first step in destroying a limiting belief is just identification. This is an action step. Identify one source of your pain in life. It could be loneliness. It could be hating your looks. It could be being broke, whatever. Isolate one limiting belief that's keeping you stuck and comment it below, and I'll see if I can provide any advice. This is the only way you can have the experiences and live the stories that make you a unique player in the great game of life rather than being an interchangeable pawn. The education system is a fossil from a bygone era. It was invented with the explicit goal of creating factory workers. The ideal factory worker does the same thing every day at the same time. He follows a schedule that is set for him by somebody else. He eats exactly what the experts tell him to. He always asks for permission to do something. I had to learn the hard way that there's only one authority whose judgment truly matters. Everything else is bullshit. Stop asking for permission. Be decisive. Roll the dice and see what happens. This brings us to Rule 2. Rule 2 is to make memories. If you feel that time is slipping by or that life is slipping by, then I want you to pay attention. You might have had this feeling that time is speeding up, that the days and weeks are flying by faster than you can even keep up. Some people say that this is an illusion because as you grow older, each year is a smaller proportion of your total life. This is not the reason. Our time perception comes from how many memories we're creating per day. You can test this out for yourself. If you go for even a short trip to a new city, even years later you can recollect the memories of the new places you saw, the things you did, the foods you ate. A week of travel actually feels like 7 separate days rather than merging into one long day. So it's clear that time perception is uneven. Some special weeks feel full of memories, but some months get completely forgotten. 2 years ago, I went to New Orleans for 7 days, and I still roughly remember what I did on those days. I remember the hostel that I stayed in. I made friends with this cool Australian dude, and we went and tried the legendary beignets at Café du Monde. I went to the World War II museum the next day. I even remember some of the cool art on display, the music scene, the architecture. I also remember on the last day, I met this chick from Portland who showed me a good time. Anyway, in comparison, a week of the school or college routine feels like one terribly long day. Even working on your own business day after day can feel drawn out. No details stick out and it all feels gray. This is because if you do the same thing day after day, your brain has no reason to record it. This becomes a mindset of, different day, different shit. And it's not just travel that I'm speaking of. I just use it as an example that everybody can kind of relate to and it's easy to understand. Here's my observation. Every successful man I know in real life got there from very different places. Many of them, though, has had a unique formative experience in their youth. I know a geneticist who traveled to India during his college years to study plant genetics. To you and me, it may not sound like an adventure, but for him, it was a foundational experience that opens up doors for him to this day. And more importantly, it gave him context for why his research mattered, and this, more than his intelligence or schooling, made him a great scientist. It is not about traveling to meet women or anything like that, though I'm certainly not against that. It's the expansion of one's horizons to understand what is possible. If you allow yourself to be exposed to the strange and dangerous situations, that's how you can test yourself. You don't have to go alone, of course. You can go with friends. If you have the money, go explore the bazaars of Turkey. Go to the fortifications of Europe, the temples of the Far East. Or if you don't have money, just explore your own country. Go to the Rocky Mountains, Yellowstone National Park, the Grand Canyon. Expose yourself to the great art, great architecture, and the great achievements of mankind. Go to the museums. This is how you rise above the swamp of mediocre minds. In fact, there are other options. I was talking to Pierre Durenlou, an expert in regenerative farming and permaculture. He was actually a guest in my private community, the Country Club. He talked about how there's this organization called WOOF that connects young guys and girls to regenerative farms that they can go for a month or so and learn about organic farming. literally hands-on experience. You'd be provided with room and board, you'd be provided with food, you'll meet guys and girls just like yourself who are interested in being healthy and avoiding toxins. A month of that kind of experience will set you apart from the rats of the rat race. If you think about it, the girls you meet in such a situation might be the kind that you want to pursue. Here's another example. You could just choose to hike the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, the AT and the PCT. It takes 5 months to complete these trails. You'll have to plan food, water, shelter, medical supplies, everything. You can go with friends, you can go alone. If you go with friends, it'll be more of a social challenge. If you go alone, it'll be a challenge against your own mind. It's things like this that instantly elevate you to a 1 in a million status. Without much money, you can elevate yourself to this status. I'd wager that stuff like this is more valuable than years of college. College is a tool. Only after you know what you want to do in life should you commit to college. In his message, Andreas said he's afraid to be a one-dimensional man, and he should be afraid. A man should be capable of creation and destruction. He should be able to wield a weapon and create art, make a fire or bake a cake. He should be able to perform first aid, able to hunt to survive. He should be able to write an essay or plant cabbages. Life for a man should be anything but one-dimensional. However, a man should have a sense of purpose and an eye towards that one thing that he will be remembered for. Even men of singular focus like Caesar or Napoleon were nevertheless competent at many things. But now let's bring it back to the present. I've never met a single person who said, man, I wish I spent more time studying. If you're in the ages of 15 to 25 and you haven't had any adventure worth speaking of, you need to fix that right now. And if you're older than 25 and you don't have any interesting stories, you really need to fix that right now. I've been thinking about this a lot over the past year. The heavens have given me this beautiful gift in the form of this YouTube channel. It allows me to connect with hundreds, if not thousands of men who would only be watching if they like the overall vibe of the entire channel. Why not use this power? What's stopping me from organizing in-person events that could result in formative experiences and memories? It wouldn't be easy, but I could organize a 3-day hike across the Alps of Europe, or we could explore the ruins of Greece. We could go to the Rocky Mountains. The world is our playground and we should use it as such. Certainly you could go solo, but it's just more fun with friends. Speaking of, rule number 3 is to build bonds. Nothing of note was built by a single man in isolation. The greatest projects are only possible through collaboration. What was Caesar without Labienus? But here's the thing, it's not about the expected benefits. You want bonds with others because it is critical for your own mental health. Even the most robust minds decay in isolation. But how do you find men like yourself? The isolation of our generation is structural, it's not just psychological. Have you ever heard of this concept of growth houses? The idea is simple. The idea is a group of like-minded guys team up to supercharge their growth. I know some entrepreneur friends right now who have booked this villa in Turkey for a month and they're just grinding with 100% discipline on their projects. They have accountability check-ins every day. They have a strategy update meeting every week. Imagine how productive you'd be in an environment like that. But it's not just work. These guys explore Turkey. They're going on hikes, they're trying new foods, meeting women. Isn't this the ideal life for a man before marriage and kids? I would have joined them, but I couldn't because I have this long stint of military training coming up. Which military training is similar in a kind of way. An entire platoon focused on one mission. The idea of growth houses is so appealing to me that I want to organize these, some in the US and some in Europe. This is where my audience is mostly located. If you're interested in the idea of going on adventures or living in a growth house, there's a form in the description that you should fill in. Additionally, you'd consider joining the country club. That's where these ideas are currently being fleshed out. The growth house which I'm imagining is a physical embodiment of the country club. Imagine spending a month getting into the best shape of your life while making massive business and social progress. That's what I want to bring to life. And if you join, you also get my courses, which used to go for $300 each. And a new course is coming up, the Mindscaping course. And this might be my best work yet. If you have the combination of mental clarity, community, and physical health, there's really no competition for you anymore. You're actually winning at life. Now this brings us to rule 4, focus on health. Nobody in the history of mankind would have regretted investing in health. The worst thing about the youth of today is just how anxious everybody is. Everybody's cortisol is through the roof. This isn't normal. We have the hormonal profile of a prey animal. Investing in health is the one investment that makes sense at any point in life and always pays dividends. If you're young, you want to put resources into hormonal health. When I was in my teens and early 20s, I really didn't know anything about these topics. And even today, most people haven't a clue about what a good nutritional plan looks like or what the benefits of a detox protocol can have. Most people still think that butter is going to give them a heart attack or that sugar is going to give them diabetes. We know better. Here are some non-negotiables. Get sunshine, get good sleep, eat real foods, get some exercise. If you can do these four, you're already winning. And I'm going to be releasing updated esoteric health guides that focus on the 20% most effective steps, so watch out for those. And finally, we get to the last and most important rule. Rule number 5 is to have faith. Faith is the illogical and unfounded belief in something. Faith is an asymmetric advantage. Embrace divine carelessness. Stop being a neurotic mess. Have faith in your own destiny. There's a reason the ancients praised youthfulness, recklessness, and carefree abundance. If you have faith in your eventual victory, you can actually live in the present instead of being an anxious rat in a lab experiment. Competition and constant comparison to others is peasant mentality. It comes with constant self-doubt and comes with not having faith in one's own destiny. It leads to short-term thinking, it leads to dishonesty, and even physical ugliness. In the 90s and the early 2000s, we spoke of the midlife crisis. But over the past decade, this midlife crisis has been moving younger and younger. The reason is because young men are absorbing the anxieties and mindsets of old men. Now you think I'm going to blame social media for yet again brainwashing the youth, but the problem actually started much earlier, and it's actually a deeper problem. Even before social media, there was a blurring of the lines between youth and full adulthood. That's why today we have youth that are filled with the anxieties of adults, and at the same time we have adults stuck in a pseudo-childhood. Part 2 talks about why you feel like a child even though you're in an adult's body. I'll show you how you can embrace the youthful life force while having the maturity and surety that is expected of a man. Part 1 talked about how to not waste your youth. Part 2 is going to show you how to leverage your youth to become a man. At this time, I'll have the title for Part 2 pop up, so you can click on that, go to the second video, and complete your knowledge.